Welcome, football fans, to another Saturday, another edition of Jocks and Pigskins. I'm your host, Tom Powell, along with Wanda Wyman, and have a lot to talk about today. It was going to talk about Jimmy Lake and the 3-4 defense that the Falcons were going to change to, but other things happened.
That's right.
So how are you doing today, Wanda?
I'm doing good. Excited for just all the stuff that's happening in the NFL. It's really good to see so much going on, some positive stuff on players and teams. So I think it's going to be an exciting year.
Yeah, so do I. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a lot about the Falcons minicamp today and next week. But we're going to discuss something that was reportedly by Adam Schefter last Sunday, was supposed to happen this week.
Right.
Didn't happen. And last night, while I was kind of laying back and putting my leg up, trying to do something about my knee, my mind keeps racing. That's why I never sleep at night. My mind's always racing. And I started to put this Falcon situation together in a different order.
Okay.
And I'm going to be interested to hear what fans say about that, and, well, what you have to say about that and what fans have to say about that.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking maybe we got it all wrong as far as the way these punishments are being structured.
Okay.
So, to start, before we start the discussion, show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Sign up with Prize Picks today and receive a match of up to $100 on your first deposit. And remember to use the promo code ASU, and I probably should put the stream up there. No, I don't want to end this stream. I want to put the banner up there.
There you go.
So, there we go. Use the promo code ASU. Sign up with Prize Picks. I'm still getting used to this one. Dave was very good at this.
Yeah, he would pop it up there really quick.
And I know Chris was a little bit busy. Chris isn't on because normally Chris will grab this. But remember, as I say, they will match up to $100 of your first deposit. And remember to use the promo code ASU to support the channel, Atlanta Sports Unlimited, and support the show. So, and also I have a Prize Picks NFL Futures prop for you from the Falcons. Last week I gave you a prop about Kirk Cousins in passing yards. This week we got receiving yards. Drake London is being projected by Prize Picks for 975.5 receiving yards for 2024. So over or under. Going to be interesting to see, especially with the way the quarterback situation is lining up.
Right. Exactly.
So you making a bet yet, Wanda?
No, I'm kind of going to hold off.
Okay. First topic is the Falcons and this punishment from the NFL that we expected this week. We were told to expect this week. And now the Eagles are also on the clock as far as a punishment for tampering with Saquon Barkley. But that's kind of considered to be a minor.
Right.
Kind of going to be a minor, might be just a late round draft choice on that one.
Right.
But they're looking into more with the Falcons. And I've been wondering why this keeps getting delayed, because they keep talking about it before the draft. Then they were talking about it, this week before minicamp. And it still hasn't happened. So I'm beginning to think that maybe we're missing something. I'm going to go through the charges real quick that the league is looking at. Got this from Pro Football Focus last Monday. First one is Cousins spoke to the Falcons head athletic trainer before the 4 p.m. Eastern Time tampering period deadline. Second, Cousins spoke with Director of Player Personnel Ryan Pace before the legal tampering deadline. There's a familiar name.
Yeah.
Name I know we've all trying to leave in the past, but
That should be the first clue. Go ahead.
yeah. Third, Cousins admitted to becoming directly involved with recruiting former Bears receiver Darnell Mooney.
Right.
And then 4, the question isn't whether Kyle Pitts tried to recruit Kirk Cousins. It's whether the Falcons encouraged Kyle Pitts to text Kirk Cousins to get him to come to Atlanta.
Interesting.
So those are the charges we're looking at. And I know part of this is the depth of what these charges are. But, you know, Florio and Pro Football Talk kind of put out there that maybe the NFL is looking deeper into who else the Cousins might have talked to on the Falcons. Maybe, you know, not just these two, but maybe others. And if the Falcons, you know, how deep was the NFL digging? And we got 2 tampering cases we can go along with to try and get an idea. Now, the Miami Dolphins lost the 2023 first-round pick, and you added to my notes about that it was part of the racial discrimination lawsuit. Is that lawsuit still alive, or is that gone?
Yeah, I don't know.
I just thought of that. Is that because he is a defensive coordinator, and I still expect Brian Flores to get a head coaching position again.
Yeah, I do too. I expect it.
That was part of the Miami Dolphins tampering with quarterback Tom Brady and Sean Payton.
Right.
And which was a mess, a complete mess, the way that took place. You know, and then Kansas City lost a 3rd-round pick and a 2017 6th-round pick for tampering with former Eagles receiver Jeremy Maclin. So my thought is the NFL investigating whether the Falcons initiated the communications or whether Cousins initiated the communications with the Falcons to make him a better prospect for the Falcons to sign?
It's a possibility. I mean, it's possible that he was trying to build himself in the market and to be consistent in what he had asked with the Vikings when he signed with the Vikings. So it might go that direction. Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, Cousins is the type of guy that he's very sure of himself.
Yes.
So he knows what type of product that he is, and he puts himself up there as an elite quarterback and marketing himself because he does all his own deals, I guess you want to call them, contracts and so on. He does it himself. So I think here it's very possible that might be the case. And I'm leaning towards that thinking as well. Because out of all the players that were out there, I don't see the Falcons that they would have gone after Mooney in particular, because he didn't have a great season last year with the Bears. He had been declining even after his injury and trying to connect. But it's interesting, and I'm looking at the way that Cousins plays. He loves having a type of slot receiver, someone that is quick, that can run down, because on the long ball, it's really hard for Mooney to get that long ball. We saw the catastrophe last year.
Right.
But if they're short routes, if they're just, simple, corner routes, whatever, that he can grab, then he's good at that. And I think that Cousins was looking at him as a type of Jefferson, small but fast, be able to get what he can. Not in the same level as JJ,
Right.
because JJ's a totally different,
Yes.
species of athlete.
Yes, he is. Right.
But I think that he was looking for somebody, and being that in the division, he had seen Mooney play, he knew what he could do, and he figures he can connect in there, because obviously he would do very well with Pitts, because he did very well with tight ends as well. So I think it could be that he was recruiting himself and recruiting others at the same time, kind of bringing his own entourage, kind of like a Tom Brady Gronk thing, take someone that you can, and you've seen them play and know what they can do. And I think he felt that way with Mooney, because like I said, there were other wide receivers, but I think they were trying to make it contract friendly.
Yeah.
So if he's putting himself in a deal financially with Atlanta, hey, here's somebody that I think would work out. Let me put my feelers out there and see if he would be willing. So It's very possible that could be it. And that's why the NFL is kind of dragging their feet a little bit. It could be, maybe the decisions with the owners as well. And that might be a factor. I think you had mentioned that that's a possibility with the CEO, Rich McKay. So
being head of the competition committee.
Yeah. So that could be a whole big thing. And that's why they're dragging their feet on it a little bit. Because, I agree. The decision should have been done already of what they were going to do. I don't know if it's really going to be that extensive, depending on who they're investigating. So was it Atlanta initiating it and going after it, or was it Kirk Cousins doing it? That it would just be interesting how that would be.
Well, see, and I think this combines with the kind of take you had from this past week, and we'll get to that in a second, because I thought that was fascinating too. And I hadn't seen that yet. But could it be that Cousins contacted the head trainer in an effort to encourage the Falcons to not worry about his Achilles injury?
It's very possible. It's very possible. So, I had read, I'm not sure if it was on PFF or not, but I'll have to find where I read it. But there was a prominent orthopedic surgeon, a Dr. Jesse Morse, that he questioned Cousins' ability to recover from a severe Achilles. So Cousins' Achilles was in his back leg, and that would be his I think it's his pass leg. Yeah. So that's where he would put more of his power. It's his power leg, and that's where he would put more of his power. And that's different from Rodgers' Achilles that was in the front, which is, I think, why Rodgers was so positive on the quick healing of the Achilles, because it wasn't as bad. But with Cousins, he even admitted himself he is not 100%.
Yes, he did.
And being that they are depending on Cousins' arm and getting it down the field in his power throws, if he's not 100%, and he tries a throw and it overthrows, or he throws an interception, then we're going to have a problem. And I guarantee you, if his leg is not 100% by the time of training camp and the first game of the season, and you start seeing where he's having difficulties, I guarantee you his interception rate is going to go up. That it hasn't, and he normally has a low interception rate. So that might be an issue, and that may bring into why they kept and restructured Heineke's contract and drafted Penix. I think there's a whole thing. I think Atlanta was, they want Cousins because they know he's good and he would get the Falcons where they need to go. But there's that possibility if they're on a run and something happens, they want to be able to continue, but they need someone that's going to continue on because of last year's fiasco that did not.
God, last year was terrible. Yeah.
Right.
And it took them out of the playoffs.
Exactly.
Exactly. Now, we got a comment here by Wallace Smith, a regular commenter, and good to see you, Wallace. I don't think the tampering penalty is a big issue like some people think it is, because they didn't rush it when the Chiefs got penalized with tampering.
Right.
Now,
and I can agree with him. I agree with him. I think it's not going to be as bad as they're making it.
But I'm still saying it might be bad, but in a different sense. And stick with me, Wallace, because I do have I have somewhere I'm going with this. Okay. And that's another thing that really started racing around in my head last night. So my concern is, considering that, again, is it Cousins that made the contact with the head athletic trainer? Then Cousins talking with Ryan Pace, probably about himself, but also about Mooney, because Pace drafted Mooney.
Right.
I'm beginning to wonder if maybe we're not looking at a Cousins suspension coming up.
Oh.
What do you think of that?
That's a possibility. Yeah. If he was one that initiated that, and it is very possible. Which that would mean that Atlanta knew, and they would have to get. Oh, yeah, I see where you're going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very, very possible.
Right. Exactly. And see, Wallace, that's where I'm going with this, because this might be a case where maybe they don't consider the Falcons serious because they weren't initiated by the Falcons. They weren't initiated because Terry Fontenot said do this, or Arthur Blank said do this, but because Cousins initiated the tampering charges, the tampering to begin with, and kind of brought this about himself. I think there might be a couple of small sanctions against the Falcons, but it just started hammering home in my mind last night. We may see a Cousins suspension for the first couple of games of the season. And
I could see that. I could see that as a possibility. Yeah. Which would explains it does explain a lot. And
explains why Atlanta suddenly sent their entire front office and scouting staff to Washington to watch Penix work out. And this was not long. This was about a couple of weeks before the draft. So, I mean, everybody was still thinking edge rusher. Now, Wallace, do people really know that Kirk talked with Pace about Mooney, or is that's Wallace? I'm just thinking that is a possibility for why the punishment has not come down yet. Don't take that as gospel.
Right.
But I'm trying to make sense of all this. And there is a connection between Mooney and Pace. Now, I don't know what the NFL has found yet. None of us do. I'm just trying to make sense of this.
Right.
And
we don't know. Honestly, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. We have no idea who, who said what, who contacted. I mean, for all we know, Pace could have tickled Mooney's ear.
Yeah.
And said, hey, knowing that Mooney's contract was up, he didn't have a really good season. Pretty much most Bears fans knew that Mooney was not going to be re-signed.
Right.
So it wasn't a surprise. I figured he'd be going somewhere. Now, the fact that his name is in this whole thing with Cousins and the tampering, it just brings it as an interesting, situation, being that Pace is the one that drafted him. So, yeah.
So, yeah, Wallace, don't take this as gospel. I'm not reporting anything.
Right.
We're not reporting anything.
Right.
But I'm trying to put the puzzle pieces together. And, okay, he says, I disagree with that because they didn't go out to Washington to work out Penix because of them getting caught up with Kirk tampering. I'm saying that they went out to look at Penix because there is a possible suspension coming for Kirk Cousins. That makes sense because Dave and I were trying to figure out for a long time why would they send the entire front office out to Washington? Right. And why would they do that when they already had Cousins under contract for big money? And they had renegotiated Heineke's contract to lessen the cap hit because there was about a $7 million dead cap hit on Heineke's contract before they renegotiated. And then going to Washington to take a look at Penix when they needed an edge rusher. And I still say they need an edge rusher. And we will get to talk about the defense maybe next week because of the way this all came up is that everybody's thinking that the NFL is looking into how many people are involved on the Falcons side and how many people and like the Atlanta Falcons front office was initiating these conversations. What if Cousins sold himself to the front office and they thought he was healthier than he really is right now?
It's a possibility because, I mean, you have to kind of look at, and I remember, I'm looking at it like with Ryan Pace, for instance. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you go back and you see the situation when they drafted Kevin White, okay, and there is a situation with his leg, didn't say anything, then all of a sudden he's now out. He was just drafted, now he's out. Now he's got to have this major surgery in his leg, and it was just this snowball.
Yes.
So you kind of like see the same pattern with Pace, and if there's anything in that instance, it's like, okay, Kirk's leg is still healing, so he's not going to be 100%. So we don't know what factors in if he's going to be able to play the way that he's going to play. Now, for those of us that have watched Kirk play and have seen him play, I don't doubt that he would not be able to play at his highest level. I think he knows that, and he wants to, and he's working very hard to get to that point. But the Falcons want to be that team that goes all in, and they want to take care of the quarterback position first, which is why I think they went that direction instead of going for a pass rusher.
Right.
I think they looked at, okay, we'll take what we can. We'll and like you said, we'll discuss it more next week. But taking having Calais Campbell, who's been in the league for 17 years, as part of that, yeah, they could have gotten somebody a little bit more quicker, faster, younger out of the draft. There were so many availabilities there that they could have taken, but they felt that they needed to take Penix for whatever reason. And there's obviously something we don't know. They know something. They know what's going on. They're the ones that have been in the communication with the NFL. So I think there's just so much factored in that we don't know that makes it, like questionable what is going on that they would go to that extreme. And one of those things that I was kind of like thinking was that with the penalties that were given to Kansas City, with that whole situation in not Kansas City, the Eagles, I think it was. Was it?
The Eagles with Barkley.
The Eagles with Barkley, I don't think is going to be as big.
No,
I think it's just like it's kind of like, but it was more the Dolphins tampering. So there was a little bit of a heavier fine in that situation because of Brian Flores, and they kind of put that into the same thing. So that was, I think, a little bit more pricier in what came down. With this, I don't think it's going to be as pricier because there wasn't this racial discrimination involved in it. But at the same time, it's like, would they hammer down on Cousins, or are they going to go strictly against, the general manager and head coach and go that direction like they normally do?
Well, see, and that's why it makes sense to me that maybe this is taking longer.
Yeah.
Because they're finding out more that, maybe this isn't all the Falcons. Maybe it's Cousins sold himself to the Falcons as a maybe he sold himself to the Falcons as the solution, as the guy who's going to lead them to the playoffs this next couple of years. And and I'm wondering how culpable the Falcons are right now. And it's going to be interesting to see when this finally does come down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think so.
Yeah, Wallace, when I knew Penix was high in their draft board, but they didn't need him. They needed a pass rusher, especially now that they're changing to a 3-4. And we'll go into that next week because I still want to talk about this switch from a 4-3 to a 3-4 and the Falcons' current defensive personnel who are all signed to be part of this 4-3 defense and how they are going to fit in this new defensive scheme and how the Falcons are going to make this work. Because I don't know yet, and I'm very eager to find out. Now, Grady Jarrett's he's going to be at minicamp. He's not going to participate, but he's going to be there. He's supposed to be healthy by training camp. But Wallace, I think the NFL wants to come out with the Philly and Atlanta decision together. So and I think we probably leave it behind at this point. But no, Philly got caught with tampering, but I think they want to release both punishments together. I think that's the case here. I don't think they want to do one and then do another one a week later. They want to get both of them out of the way. Right. So that's why the Philly one is still hanging on, because there's still things going on with the Atlanta case that we're not seeing. And as I say, I'm speculating that maybe Cousins is coming in for more punishment for this than we originally thought. And that makes sense to me. But a lot of things make sense to me. And then
Yeah.
later,
It's all possibilities. Yeah.
right? I'm just putting possibilities out there, and I want to hear. And Wallace, you've had your say, and I do want to hear what other people have to say about it, what they think. Did Cousins, was this more of Cousins doing than the Falcons doing? And I haven't seen anybody actually say that yet. But yeah, going to the 3-4, I do want to talk to that a little bit deeper. Tony Wright has a comment. Believes that some people are sleeping on Braylon Trice. I don't know if they're sleeping on Braylon Trice. He projected he will take over as starter by week 5. That's possible, Tony. I wouldn't argue that. I don't think people are sleeping on Braylon Trice. It's just that there were edge rushers who were considered first-round starter quality edge rushers that the Falcons passed on. Braylon Trice could be the guy that they need. However, remember a couple of years ago, we thought Arnold Ebiketie would be the guy, would develop into the guy that the Falcons were looking for. And he hasn't done it yet. So it's always hard to tell. And that's why, when you're in the top 10, to me, you always got to get you should get a starter potential Pro Bowler. And that used to always drive me crazy about Pace when he was general manager of the Bears, is all his trading around, and he never actually ended up getting those elite players that he should have gotten when the Bears were, drafting in the top 10.
Right.
So, but yeah, it could be. Wallace, we know Terry doesn't draft for need with his first pick. However, I also think that Letu was the most talented player, or Turner, coming out. And you could have drafted for need and got a top quality starter at the same time. Killed 2 birds with 1 stone. So I do. And let's go into a little bit more of this. Grady Jarrett will be at training camp, he says. So Jarrett is not your classic zero technique nose tackle type guy in the 3-4, but then neither was Aaron Donald. So I'm thinking maybe this can work for Grady Jarrett being in the middle of this 3-4 defense. But typically you want a guy who, he has a lot of weight to him, is going to take up a couple of blockers, is going to take up a couple of edges. So I disagree with you, Wallace.
It would be interesting to see if whether when they switch to the 3-4, and some of the players that they got were, 4-3 players, that it's not, a type of 3-4 hybrid.
I think it'll be a 3-4 hybrid.
Yes. Yeah, and to have that, I mean, when those kind of switches, so when you switch from a 4-3 to a 3-4 defense, there's several successes. It increases the sack rate, so they can increase the sack rate from 6.6% to the average 6.3 from a 4-3 defense. And they can, it will add to Atlanta's sack rate. The interceptions, though, can be, the rate gets higher on a 4-3 defense. So that might be a factor in there that they can play on in the 3-4 look will help a defense to cause the offense blockers to hesitate when they're adjusting. So I think this might even elevate Atlanta's defense by having that type of hybrid defense for them. I think that's going to be a great factor. And then the 4-3 defense, personnel specific, and the 2-by-2 formation that they get can pull the linebackers in from the box. So there's going to be a lot of factors involved in having that hybrid defense. And I think it's going to help Atlanta with the players that they have, and the fact that they didn't get the pass rusher that they wanted, or they could have taken, and they chose Penix. But what Wallace was talking about with the linebacker, I think they're going to use his quickness in that hybrid scheme, and I think it's actually going to work itself out there. My only concern is the back end with the DBs. Even though Bates is a ball hawk, he's a phenomenal player, and he elevated himself quite a bit when Richie Grant got out, and Grant had so many injuries and issues there, and he's I believe on the hot seat.
So do I.
Yeah, definitely on the hot seat. And if his game is just not up there, I'm afraid that it's all going to go to the young players. They're just going to take over.
I think DeMarco Helms is going to challenge for that starting safety.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Grant is definitely on the hot seat. I don't like the angles he takes to the ball. And I don't think he's good in coverage. And everything I've seen out of Helms, he seems to have a great nose for the football, knows where the football is going.
Yeah.
Knows where it's going to be. And I like that out of a defensive player. It really impresses me. The more I see a defensive player around the ball, the better I feel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So seeing Helms, I like his ability to get around to the ball.
Yeah, and he's going to thrive in that hybrid. He's going to thrive because, just like you said, he transitions so quickly in whatever stance he's in. So in that 3-4 defense, he's going to be able to just watch the quarterback. He's going to look at that ball, and he's going to be after the ball. And I guarantee you, he's also going to have at least 2 to 3 interceptions next year. Mark it.
Yeah. Okay. I got you. we got you down for it. Tony thinks that, and I guess we're going to talk about the 3-4 defense this week. But we give the guys what they want. Give the fans what they want here. Second string. Well, let's see. He's saying for the starting D line would be Zach Harrison, David Onyemata, and Grady Jarrett. I would agree there as far as the way they start the season. I don't know if Onyemata is big enough to take on the blockers, because you're looking for a guy who's big enough to take on blockers, cover 2 gaps when you're in the 3-4, because you got 4 offensive linemen going off against your 3 defensive linemen, and I know you're counting an outside linebacker, but I don't know if Onyemata has the heft to play that inside position. I guess we're going to find out, because he's what they got.
Yeah.
He's everything. He is what they got right now. They don't have anybody else to do this. let's see, Onyemata is, well, he's 6'3", 300 pounds.
Oh, he should be able to.
So he should be able to, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just looked that up. Now, an interesting guy, I'm going to be interested to see if he comes to training camp committed, because he hasn't been committed for the last couple of years, is Eddie Goldman. Because he's 6'3", he's 332. And he's someone that ideally would be that nose tackle in a 3-4. But, ever since he came back from the one COVID season, did not play well with the Bears his final season there.
Right.
And now he's retired twice with the Falcons. So I question his commitment. Onyemata might be the guy. Would be interesting to see how they use him, because 300 pounds, that might be enough to get him place him at the nose, keep Grady Jarrett at one side, and Zach Harrison, I think, is going to make up his presence felt this year. I like Zach Harrison.
Yeah.
He's looking at Taquan Graham, yeah, Eddie Goldman or Contavious Street. As I say, if Goldman is committed to playing football this year,
yeah,
he's a talent.
Yep.
And he is a guy who does not get moved in the interior of the line. We saw that his first 2 or 3 seasons with the Bears. We saw that. He is a wall. But that's, is he committed to playing? Is he committed to being in shape?
Right. Yeah. And if he is, and I agree, if he is committed to play, as he says he is, that's going to be interesting to see, because he will fight for that position then, and he would be an immediate starter.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Then you have Onyemata, who can go in on alternate downs.
Right. Exactly.
So, and that creates some depth that the Falcons didn't have before in their defensive line.
Right. That'll change things. Yeah, for sure.
So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Trey Anderson, I think, is going to make a very good inside linebacker in the 3-4. Because you can do a lot with the 3-4 as far as, a dual linebackers blitz, blitz your 2 dual linebackers into the gaps. And Trey Anderson showed that he's fast and he can react fast. And I think he's coming back from his injury well. And I like his possibilities as one of the lead linebackers out on the field this year. So how else they set up the linebackers is going to be interesting. Where does Caden Ellis go? Where does Landman go? Landman showed that he has a lot of talent, and it's going to be interesting to see how he fits in this year, in the linebacker spot. Then you got the secondary, and it looks like they're going to give Mike Hughes more time at the corner position. So you might see Hughes, or you might see oh God, talking too much. That's what happens. I start talking too much, and but Hughes and Clark Phillips is going to be interesting to see who wins out to be the starting corner, or is it a matter of you got alternating corners? Because Clark did play near the end of last season, so I'm looking forward to that. Tony, that I wanted to bring that up too. Nose tackle Zion Logue, the 6th round pick, big man, and I think this is the reason why they made him their final pick in the draft. Because if he can show that he can play in that defensive line, I forget where Logue lines up. Let me see real quick. I got it called up here. Zion Logue, 314 pounds. No, that wasn't the guy I was thinking of. There's a bigger guy, their last pick guy. Logue, though, could be a good possibility on the defensive line. 314 pounds, good middle guy. So Tony says starting, he's looking at Lorenzo Carter, who did a pretty good job last year, Nate Landman, Caden Ellis, Arnold Ebiketie. It'll be interesting to see Ebiketie starting as a linebacker and not as a defensive end. Starting with standing up instead of with his hand in the ground. Because that's the big problem you have with linebackers in the 3-4 is, are they stronger? Are they a better rusher with their hand in the ground than standing up? Or are they better rushers standing up? And that's where the evaluation comes into play with the 3-4. So I still think there's room for Troy Anderson on this defense. As one of the linebackers in this 3-4 defense. So one of the things we'll start to get a feel for in minicamp this week. So you have anything to add to this 3-4 mix before we kind of see the initial versions of it rolling out in minicamp?
No, those are all good prospects, actually. So it all depends on minicamp. See who shines out there and who wants to be the big dog. So it'd be interesting to see where they all play out and how they're going to fit them in the scheme.
Yeah, Wallace. No, I do agree with you. They may start Troy over Nate, and I agree there. I think Troy Anderson might be that guy, and I think he's going to be an outstanding inside linebacker in this defense. I'm looking forward to seeing Troy Anderson as minicamp and then training camp gets underway. Yeah, Tony, Nate Lamb, and Caden Ellis will rotate with Troy Anderson. Yeah, probably happen a lot. One other thing that was brought up this week, we can finish off with, Bijan Robinson says his ankle is close to 100%. So, always good news. Because we are expecting a lot out of Bijan this year.
Oh, yeah.
And he expects to take on more of a Christian McCaffrey role in this offense. Now, how heavy do you think we're going to see Bijan Robinson in this offense?
That kind of like it's a scary thought. And Bijan, I think he would be so excited to be used in the same way as McCaffrey. But again, you don't want to overpound a player so bad that then they wind up injury riddled. Now, if they play the same way as they do with the 49ers in spreading the ball, then it'll work itself out. Right. The way that the Panthers had used McCaffrey, he was their everything and almost buried McCaffrey, and he was able to be used differently in the 49er scheme. So they were able to spread the ball. So he wasn't constantly the receiver, the running back, and everything else in between. If they're careful with Bijan and being that if Cousins is playing, he's doing what he needs to do, spreads the ball, then I think it's going to be just as balanced, and Bijan's going to have, 1,000 yards or more in that position. So I think it'd be exciting because he is capable.
Yes,
yes, right up there. So for a fantasy player, oh yeah, I'm all over that. But to see that actually on the field, that'll be exciting. That would really be exciting.
No, I was wondering about that too. Yeah, fantasy football players might, you might want to take a close look at Bijan Robinson this year and the way he's going to be used.
Yep.
Because I do think he's going to be a big advantage for people. If you haven't done your fantasy draft yet, keep Bijan Robinson in mind because he's determined. He really wants to show why they picked him number 5.
Yeah, and he's listed in the top 5 running backs in fantasy right now. So, he's number 3. So if he's there, you definitely want to take him.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see. I agree with you. I think this is going to be a big season for him, and I know there are a lot of Tyler Algier fans out there. And I'm sorry, but Tyler Algier is not going to see as much of the action as he's going to take over more of the Keith Smith role because Keith Smith has already been released, the only fullback that the Falcons had. And I think Algier is going to take over that role. But Bijan Robinson, and probably one of the reasons why Arthur Smith got fired this last year is Fontenot being disappointed with how much Robinson contributed in the offense compared to what Fontenot probably had in mind when he drafted him.
Right.
And so it definitely was a strike against Arthur Smith going in. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, and I think Algiers will have some a little more time to play if defenses hold Bijan. So if they hold him to minimize the power runs, then Algiers is going to be used obviously to cut in and so that they can use 2 power heads if they need to.
Yeah, but again, Zach Robinson really does not go with 21 personnel. He goes a lot with 1 back personnel.
Right.
So, but it'll be interesting to see how he adjusts as the training camp goes on, as the preseason goes on. Because, Robinson is not known for using 2 backs in his backfield. Larry Orange, I don't think they're going to use them at the same time. As I say, Zach Robinson.
I agree. I don't think they're going to use them at the same time. But if they see that Bijan is being held in the first half of a game and that he's not being able to make the run, that they're going to have to use an alternate plan. And that will have to be Algiers to at least get the running game going so that they can get the passing game to move. If they're in a stalemate, they have no choice but to use them. So I think it's in the back pocket plan, kind of like there just in case. But I agree that he doesn't use a 2-back system, but he may use them when they need to.
Wallace, I'm not saying that Algier is going to take over at fullback because, they got rid of Keith Smith because they don't use a fullback. But in a fullback type role in short yardage, goal line, where you need somebody strong who can run up behind that very good run blocking offensive line. Because Algier is still a bowling ball and he will still run you over. And it's going to be interesting to see. But we are amazing how we keep filling these hours. It's the off season. I expected actually to be doing half-hour shows right now. But we've kind of filled our time. I do want to thank everybody for staying with us. And remember that our show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the promo code ASU and to support the channel, support the show. Subscribe to the channel. There's plenty of Atlanta sports talk that we have that we cover and that talk about all week. So stay in tune with that. And, again, always good to follow the show. Happy to see everybody who spend part of their Saturday with us. As I said, it's always fun for me. Makes it for a fun Saturday when we see the people who spend their time with us. So, Wanda, great show. Look forward to next week. We'll see what happens after minicamp, what comes out of minicamp, and if we do see a final decision on the Kirk Cousins tampering charge.
Exactly. We welcome everybody's comments. They were great. They were great questions, great comments. Love the interaction, guys.
Yep. So until next week, everyone have a great week.
Bye, guys.